Hi, welcome back to the Managing Individual Performance module. In this section we're going to look at some quotations that managers across various industries have come up with when it comes to managing performance. The first one is dealing with poor performance is the most difficult element of a manager's role. I would agree with that, having been involved in a number of disciplinary proceedings and also having to have had difficult conversations with individuals. It is quite a challenge, and it may be that as a manager you would like some additional support and want to talk through certain issues before you actually have the meeting with the individual in your team. The second one, be consistent, set expectations. It is really important that we are consistent in the way that we approach members of our team. If we deal with X in one way, then we need to deal with Y in the same way. We also do need to be clear in our expectations. What do we expect our colleagues to do? Now, what is the level of performance we're looking for? The third one, many managers are reluctant to address poor performance. Again, I think this is true. Go back to point one. It's not a particularly enjoyable thing to have to do, and therefore we may perhaps put it off. It may be that we're reluctant to address it because perhaps we're busy and we don't want to upset the individual. At the moment we're going through the COVID situation and there's a lot of stress and strain out there. We do need to be very careful when we're addressing performance issues. We need to be aware of the potential impact on individuals. However, if we ignore poor performance, then that will cause issues further down the line. Often the process is part of the issue. This may well be the case. It may well be that the reason why someone is struggling is perhaps because the process that they're having to follow is convoluted. Perhaps they don't fully understand the process. Perhaps the process is getting in the way, and that could be IT. Perhaps they failed to return X number of phone calls because their phone system isn't working the way it should. Traditional disciplinary route, time and demotivating. If anybody has actually gone down the disciplinary route in terms of holding a disciplinary hearing, you'll be aware that we have to contact colleague relations, we have to get advice, there has to be certain documentation that needs to be issued, the person can be accompanied, we need to prepare lots of documents, we need to have lots of evidence. It can be time consuming, it also can be somewhat demotivating for the individual who's going through the process. However, we shouldn't shy away from going down the disciplinary route if that is the only route available to us. Longer term, colleagues' performance is failing. Have they had appropriate opportunities and training? By this, what we mean is that someone who's worked for us for quite a while, perhaps as an experienced colleague, all of a sudden their work starts to fall, they start to fail, they start to miss key SLAs, etc. Then maybe there's been a change in the way that we do things. I remember when I first started in insurance broking many years ago, the process we followed was a card system whereby everything was recorded on a card. It went through to a central updating team who updated the card, and then it got sent back. Shortly after I joined, computers were introduced and the card system was scrapped, and we went through to a computerized way of doing things. And certain high performers using the old system all of a sudden were poor performers. Now, they hadn't become poor performers just because they couldn't do the job. They were struggling with the new ideas, the new concepts, and what they actually needed was some further training, but also some opportunities to understand the way that the new system actually worked. Just bear with us 1 second. Okay. Try and understand what is going on in people's lives. As I said, at the moment, due to the COVID situation, there is a lot of stress and strain. People are being asked to work from home when perhaps they'd rather work in the office. People are possibly being asked to go back to the office when they'd rather stay at home. Perhaps one of their family members isn't particularly well. There might be some financial strain because a partner may no longer be working. So we need to understand what's going on in people's lives, because that might be the underlying reason for the poor performance. Look at the person. Are they the right fit for the job? Some people can do certain types of work and some people can't. If you wanted me to play football for England, for example, I might want to play football for England. I might be motivated to play football for England, but I simply wouldn't be the right fit. I simply don't have the right skills. And that is true when we're asking people to do certain things. So if we're asking people to go and meet people, for example, in their homes, it doesn't suit everybody's personality. If maybe we're asking people to go on the phone, have difficult conversations with individuals, again, it doesn't necessarily suit everybody. So ask yourself the question, are they the right fit? Is there some other role that we could possibly give them which would fit them better? What is preventing somebody from meeting the objectives? Ask them. Be open, be transparent. It's really important that when we look at performance management that we engage the individual. So why can't you get your work back on time? Why can't you schedule accurately? Why do you keep arranging appointments which are not suitable, sending people perhaps too far? Whatever it may be, ask people, why can't you? And let them come up with the solution, because if they propose a solution, they are much more likely to follow through on that and succeed, rather than us imposing a solution on them. Be open and be transparent. We do need to be very open with individuals. We need to be clear that their performance is not meeting the required standards and the potential implications. Very similar to the right fit. Is there a better role? Consider it. Would they be better doing something different? And probably the last one is a reoccurring theme. You look at what managers have fed back, which is leading things for a long time is a recipe for disaster. There was an example given where one of these senior managers was originally a union representative in the 1980s, and he would go to disciplinary hearings, and before the formal hearing he'd have a quiet conversation perhaps with the manager, and the manager would turn around to the union rep and say, but they just can't do the job, they're not very good. And the union rep would say, yeah, I understand they're not very good, but you've allowed this to go on for 5 years, nothing's been said before, why are you raising it now? What's changed? Are you trying to get rid of this individual for whatever reason? You're bringing up poor performance now, 5 years after the poor performance started. So it's really, really important that we don't leave things to fester, that we do start to address the issue. If we can address it early, we're much more likely to reach a resolution without the need to go down a formal disciplinary route. Thank you for listening.